Hello everyone, I am Grand Royson. Welcome to new video, Volume 2, Chapter 3. The next morning, Hirata and Kushida exchange information about who they consulted the previous day as the class discusses the situation. Hirata encourages the class not to give up and remain confident in Sudo's innocence. The conversation in the class turns to one about points and the envy various D-class students feel about how many points A-class is receiving. As the students lament about their inability to reach A-class, Chabashira speaks up and informs them of a method of getting to A-class immediately. She states that with 20 million points, you are able to buy the right to transfer into the class of your choice, but also mentions that it has never been accomplished before. Curious about this, Suzun asks what the highest amount of points a student managed to accumulate in the history of the school. It is revealed that 3 years earlier, a B-class student had managed to gather 12 million points before getting expelled for fraud in his goal to reach A-class. Chabashira thinks about points and then mentions that she had forgotten to explain to the class that students could obtain points for their performance in club activities. Using the new information from their teacher, Kiyotaka appeals to Suzun regarding Sudo, mentioning his worth as the best first year in the basketball program that he's in. Suzun considers this and concedes that Sudo might have some use despite his shortcomings and tells him that she will think about it. After school, the group gather in Kiyotaka's room to discuss the situation, after spending their time investigating. Suzun swings by, looking to speak with Kiyotaka on her own, but immediately realizes that the entire group is present. Kushida looked over and Suzun is trapped into coming into the room. Begrudgingly, Suzun admits to the group that she has found out who the witness for the event was, naming them as Eri Sakura from their class. She states that Eri had looked away from Kushida the morning when she asked the class to help to find the witness in Sudo's case, while other students were focused on her, including Kiyotaka, who is impressed with Suzun's observation. Most of the group has issues remembering who Eri is due to her shy nature and loner personality. They thank Suzun for her help on the topic, and Kushida attempts to contact her but is unsuccessful. After discussing how to talk with her, the group ultimately resolves for Kushida to confront her the next day. The next morning, Hirata comes to Kiyotaka to discuss Eri and the unfolding situation, looking to use him as a proxy for Suzun. They agree to meet up sometime until Kiyotaka's attention is drawn to Eri entering the room. Kushida approaches her after homeroom ends and Eri becomes very evasive and nervous. Eri gives a few excuses to leave and denies being present for the fight, but Kushida pressures her more on the matter. Kiyotaka understands why Suzun believes her to be the witness since it's clear to him that she's trying to hide something. Eri turns to leave the classroom but bumps into Ryotaro Hondo and drops her digital camera on the floor. She tests the camera and finds that it's broken. Distraught, Eri excuses herself and runs out of the classroom. Sudo feels disappointed as he believes Eri doesn't want to help, while Suzun speaks her thoughts on the matter. Kushida points out to Kiyotaka that the other students in the class are starting to lose the desire to help Sudo. Koenji speaks up and tells Sudo to get expelled, which enrages Sudo. Hirata stops the two and Sudo storms out of the classroom upset. Kiyotaka brings up Sudo's future athletic worth to Suzun, but she dismisses it being helpful at the moment in her goal of reaching Class A. They also have doubts in Eri being a useful witness for the incident due to her being from Class 1D. Kiyotaka laments that the fight hadn't occurred in a classroom, as the cameras installed in one would have helped to provide evidence against Class C's claims. Suzun then invites Kiyotaka to head home together as she wants to talk about something, to which a confused Kiyotaka agrees, but asks to stop at somewhere first before returning to the dorms. The two of them head towards the club building together and speak for a bit before determining that there are no cameras in the hallways where Sudo and the C-class students had fought one another. There are outlets near the ceiling, but no camera is present. Since their plan has failed, the two walks around the building for a bit talking about the situation. Kiyotaka suggests her to find a different plan, while Suzun expresses that she wants to lessen the blame placed upon Sudo so the class wouldn't lose too many points. They turn around the corner to exit the building and Kiyotaka runs into Eri. Kiyotaka immediately recognizes her, and she explains that her hobby is taking pictures and shows her phone, trying to explain why she wasn't paying attention. She then notices Suzun and immediately starts to run off after being told she has something to ask her. As she's running off, Kiyotaka calls out to her that she doesn't have to push herself, and then states that she doesn't have to come out as the witness. He adds on that if she is being threatened, he will try to help as much as he can. She seems to respond to this and leaves. Suzun questions him for his decision to not stop her, and he asserts that Eri being a witness for the event doesn't help much anyway. As they talk, they are called out to by Hanami Ichinos from Class 1B, asking them what they are doing here. She recognizes that they belong to Class 1D, and mentions that she had met Kiyotaka before on 2 occasions. They say that they were investigating the incident that happened a few days ago, and Ichinos states that she was also doing some investigations of her own and asks if she could help out with the situation. Suzun is on guard and Kiyotaka is a bit doubtful of her intentions, but he eventually explains what they know of the situation. They talk for a bit about the situation, with Ichinos offering to help them. Ichinos also mentions that Sudo will be a great asset in the future since the class will also gain points if he performs well in sports. Learning this new information, Suzun and Kiyotaka explain that their teacher never tells them anything until much after the other classes are aware of it, expressing discontent with having Chabashira as the teacher of their class. Ichino states that teachers are also evaluated when their class graduates, and after talking a bit more, she exchanges contact information with Kiyotaka for future communication. Heading back to the dorms, Kiyotaka concludes that Ichinos is attempting to gain D-class's trust by helping out with the situation. Suzun follows Kiyotaka to his room, where she consults him about his thoughts on the case. She is concerned about Kushida's willingness to help Sudo and recalls the conclusion that she had come to earlier on the matter, that is to leave Sudo to accept punishments from the school for his own sake. She then asserts that Kiyotaka told Kushida the extent of the situation the day before. Kiyotaka is silent while Suzun brings up how he had gotten the old midterm test questions and bought Sudo's test point with private points. Kiyotaka attempts to deny her accusations, but despite his denial, she asserts that he is hiding his true ability. Kiyotaka realizes that he had messed up a little and allowed Suzun to see too much. While leaving for school the next day, Kiyotaka runs into Ichinos. The two decide to head to school together, and Kiyotaka realizes the massive amount of popularity that Ichinos has with most of the students that pass them by. They talk about the upcoming summer vacation on a tropical island and share their doubts that the vacation is what it seems to be. This prompts them to discuss the class points system and how exactly the classes are separated by merit. Suddenly, in the midst of their conversation, Ichinos changes the topic and asks if Kiyotaka had ever been confessed to by a girl before. Confused by her sudden change in topic and attitude, Kiyotaka questions why she's asking. Ichinos brushes his concern aside and requests him to meet her by the entrance of the school after classes end for the day, to which he accepts. After class that day, the two meet up in front of the school building. They go behind the school building and Ichinos tells him that she is going to be confessed to, behind the school in about 10 minutes, and that she would like for him to pretend to be her boyfriend so that she can avoid having to hurt the person's feelings so they can remain friends. Uncomfortable with the situation, Kiyotaka attempts to give a complete response but the conversation is interrupted by Chihiro Shiranami who has come to the confession location early. She asks if Kiyotaka was Ichinos' boyfriend, to which Ichinos fumbles around with her words a bit, unable to give a clear response. Before Ichinos could say anything else, Kiyotaka states simply that the two of them are only friends. He then tells Ichinos that confessing puts someone's feelings out there and that the right thing to do is to give those feelings a proper answer and not to hide away from them. Kiyotaka heads to the front of the school and takes a seat on a railing. Not long after, he sees Shiranami running past him crying with Ichinos appearing not long afterwards. Ichinos understands that she was incorrect to not respect Shiranami's feelings and thanks Kiyotaka for helping her out moments earlier. That night, Kiyotaka gets a call from Kushida. She explains that she feels guilty for having caused the situation where Eri's camera was broken and tells Kiyotaka that they plan on going out over the weekend to get the camera fixed. She adds on that she would like him to join her for the event, and the two begin to talk about their classmates for a bit before Kiyotaka asks to confirm that Kushida lives on the 9th floor. Their conversation dies out and neither of them talks for a bit. Kiyotaka attempts to end the call after a while when Kushida tells him to wait and begins to say something but stops herself. The two end the call as Kiyotaka wonders if it was something he had said to her. On Sunday afternoon, Kiyotaka goes to the mall to meet Kushida. Kushida thinks they look great together and mentions that Eri asked her to invite him. They then notice her sitting on the bench next to them. Eri apologizes for not standing out and removes her face mask. She again apologizes for asking them to come with her, and they head to the electronics store. While Kushida finds the repair counter, Kiyotaka and Eri have a small talk about Eri's hobby of taking pictures. Eri suddenly stops and Kiyotaka notices her fearful behavior but brushes it off when Kushida asks about it. Kushida then goes with Eri to talk with the store clerk, while Kiyotaka starts checking out other appliances in the store. Kiyotaka notices the clerk being uncomfortably aggressive towards Kushida. Eri's camera has been damaged from the fall and thanks to her having the warranty card, it can be fixed free of charge. However, Eri starts hesitating when being asked to fill in her information, with the clerk staring at her with unsettling eyes. Kiyotaka then asks to see the form and fills his contact information in, telling the clerk to contact him when the repair is done. While returning, they talk about how suspicious the clerk was, with Eri mentioning her fear of going to the shop alone because of him. She expresses her gratitude to Kiyotaka, and he says he will get in touch with her when the camera is repaired. Eri then talks about her love for cameras and taking pictures since she was a kid. She gets flustered when being asked if she ever takes pictures of people instead of landscapes. Kiyotaka says he needs to look around the store and the two girls decide to come along. Kiyotaka calls the professor, Hideo Sotomura, to ask about some kind of product. After glancing at Eri's profile, Kushida thinks she has met her somewhere and asks her to remove the glasses she is wearing, but Eri refuses, using her bad eyesight as an excuse. Eri thanks Kiyotaka and Kushida for accompanying her, while they tell her to not be too formal and just talk to them normally as friends. As Kushida bids farewell, Eri speaks up and tells them that she may be able to help out in Sudo's case. She admits to having coincidentally seen the incident. Kiyotaka and Kushida tell Eri not to force herself just because she's grateful, but she denies and says she would probably come to regret it if she stayed silent. Later that night, Kiyotaka and Kushida talk about Eri's appearance and how her glasses look out of place, with Kiyotaka pointing out they are fake and suspecting that Eri is hiding her true self. Their call gets interrupted when Kiyotaka receives another incoming call from Eri. She again thanks Kiyotaka for earlier but becomes silent afterwards and asks what he was thinking of, prompting Kiyotaka to ask if there's something wrong. She says it's nothing and cuts off the call, leaving Kiyotaka confused. If you like this video, please like, subscribe and share for more. Thanks you all, meet you in another video.